Our last topic is all about evaluating your change. The study design, some of the textbooks call it transformation, same thing. So we're just kind of wrap up the entire area study here. So basically we're going to say that while it's important for a business to review its KPIs, key performance indicators, before we implement change, so we need to know what to do, so we look at the KPIs. This last little topic is sort of about, well, once you have implemented change, you need to review those KPIs and your performance afterwards as well. Why? Because you've got to figure out whether the transformation or the change that you implemented was successful, how big and the extent of any transformation. So something might have been successful, but maybe not as successful as you'd hoped. So we need to know the size and extent of that transformation. The specific areas where change did and didn't work. So we can't just say everything worked or everything didn't work. Which individuals, teams, departments, states, countries, geographic locations, where did it get better, where did it get worse? But also which products. So we might have implemented change through a range of products. One worked, but other products didn't. So we've got to figure out specifically where it did work. And lastly, the most importantly, what's the next course of action? Because we don't just stop. Do we continue to implement the same change strategy, maybe just improve it or try to improve it? Do we change it completely and go with an alternative change strategy? Or do we just keep things as they are? Just leave it as it was. Maybe the change worked out really, really well. So what we'll do is sort of summarize the entire area study here and do a process. We'll say implementing change is a continual process. We've got to continually review the effectiveness of business transformation or change. And we're just going to try and summarize this into 6 steps. This is not a formal thing in the study design. It's just something to guide us to help talk about when we're implementing change, why we need to continually review whether it worked or not. So we'll start with step 1. Step 1 was we've got to set the objectives that we want to achieve. That was one of the first topics we ever did, and we said there were 5. To make a profit, increase market share, fulfill a market need, to meet shareholder expectations, and to fulfill a social need. Step 2 was we then got to turn these into KPIs. So these are the actual data that will indicate whether our objectives were achieved. And there were 9. There were 3 to do with sort of finances, market share, sales, profit. 4 to do with operations, productivity growth, wastage, accidents, customer complaints. And then a couple to do with your human resources, staff absenteeism and staff turnover. Step 3 is then we've got to develop the change strategies. This is the big one. This is kind of what this particular topic and this SAC is all about. Is we said, well, those change strategies, there's kind of 2 groups. There's the reactive ones, and there were 8. So there was change in management styles, staff motivation, staff training. Improve your operations in terms of technology, quality management, or lean production. And then there was also cost cutting and redeployment of resources. So they were the ones to react after things have gone wrong. But then there was also some proactive strategies we looked at. And we said there's product innovation, online shopping, and exporting to do with what you sell and where you sell it. And then there was also how you make the product. So there was global sourcing of inputs, overseas manufacturing, global outsourcing. Then you've actually got to implement the change. So you need a change model to actually help you implement it. And we looked at Lewin's 3-step model for that. And that was really simple. We said, let's unfreeze, let's make the change. So one of these things in step 3, and then let's refreeze. Lastly, we've got to reevaluate the change. We had some KPIs at the beginning of this. We implemented some changes. Well, we've got to look at those KPIs again. And all we're trying to do is determine what we just spoke about before, where the transformation worked, the size and extent of it, and also the specific area where it worked. But that's not it. We just sort of want to add that, yeah, that's not the end of it, because obviously time doesn't stop. Competitors don't, stop what they're doing. We need to continue this process. So once we've evaluated whether the change worked, we go all the way back and continue the process. The business must always continue to change after evaluating its performance and start the process again. So then we reset our objectives. We turn those into KPIs that will measure whether we achieve the objectives. We come up with some strategies. We implement the change. Did it work? We look at the KPIs again, and then we start again. And it's just a continual process. And that's the important thing to note with this last topic. Evaluating the performance of whether you achieved your goals and your transformation is always going to continue.